What is going on, everybody? It is your boy Phoenix the Boss, bringing you another episode of All Talk Wrestling's Wrestling Fans Assemble Pay-Per-View Review. I have a two-part video that I'm going to be dropping to you guys. Part one I'm going to be dropping on Monday at noon, and it's going to be this review of the Elimination Chamber. I'll be recording the second part today and dropping it Tuesday at noon, and it's going to be covering No Surrender, the Impact pay-per-view that also happened on Saturday, February the 19th. Today I want to talk a little bit about the Elimination Chamber, my thoughts on the show altogether, the direction that WWE is going with the show, and what we can look forward to. As always, if you guys are watching this video, subscribe to the channel, like, comment, share. I will be trying to do more videos with either this or some Go Battle League videos in the event that I decide to start doing those again. But without further ado, let's get to this video. Alright, so, as we all know, the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view took place in the Kingdom of Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, February 19th, 2022, at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It had about 7 matches on the card, including the pre-show match as well, and we can go ahead and jump right into that. We had Rey Mysterio versus The Miz, versus Rey Mysterio to kind of open things up. It was the pre-show match. I really didn't watch it, so I can't really give too much of a opinion on it. I seen some of the highlights on it. It looked like it was a pretty decent back and forth, but what else are you going to get between The Miz and Rey Mysterio? It seems like they're going to be grinding that thing out until about Wrestlemania, so not a lot that can come from it. So let's just go ahead and jump right into the actual first match. And we kicked off the event with Roman Reigns, the reigning defending Universal Champion, facing off against Goldberg. Roman Reigns defended the Universal Championship against Goldberg to open up the show, which I didn't think that we were going to be getting any swerves, and to the credit of WWE, we didn't get any swerves. Goldberg got a little bit of offense in, but you can tell that he's old. He doesn't look like he needs to be doing any type of wrestling matches or anything of that sort. So Roman squashed him. If you want to really look at it like that, Roman pretty much squashed him in about 6 minutes of in-match time. 2 times it looked like Goldberg was going for the jackhammer in order to put away Roman Reigns, but Roman reversed it every single time. Ended up putting Goldberg out with the guillotine. That was over. 1, 2, 3. Well, not 1, 2, 3, but it was over. It's just done. That was the last match on Goldberg's current contract with WWE. He's a free agent. Let's just hope that he's done in the WWE. There's no more need or reason for Goldberg to come back and take away opportunities from younger superstars when he can't even go 10 minutes in a match that means a damn. So it's like the man's had 3 World Championship matches since last year. He had 1 against Bobby Lashley, 1 against Drew McIntyre, and now 1 against Roman Reigns. We don't need any more Goldberg. We don't want any more Goldberg. Roman, the tribal chief, the head of the table, the greatest universal champion of all time, did us a favor when he smashed Goldberg, sent him into hopefully the rest of his retirement. We appreciate you. Do not come back, and we mean that respectfully as fans. Go enjoy your 50s and go enjoy time with your son. Get your son ready to become a wrestler or something like that. But we don't need you no more, man. The mystique is gone. There's no more Goldberg. Let's just end it at that. That's just what it is. Alright, and next up, on the Elimination Chamber card, we had the Women's Elimination Chamber match. It took place between Bianca Belair, Alexa Bliss, Piper Niven, because I'm not calling her Dewdrop, Liv Morgan, Nikki Ash, and Rhea Ripley. So the match went about as long as I thought that it would have gone. Now, I can say that there weren't really a lot of spots in this match that you would think of in an Elimination Chamber, but, you know, they did what they had to do, and They did what they could do with the time that they had. The women actually put on a really decent match. If I had to say so myself, I would believe that the women's Elimination Chamber match was the best match on the card. The card wasn't exactly great, so I mean, I guess that's a compliment for whatever it's worth. They started out the match with, I believe it was Liv Morgan and Nikki ASH. Then Piper Niven was the next to come out, get her offense in. Then Rhea Ripley, or I could be getting that wrong. I think it was Rhea Ripley, and then Niven came out, and then Alexa Bliss, and then of course Bianca Belair came out last. The order of the elimination, I believe it was Nikki that was eliminated first, and then Piper Niven that was eliminated, and then Liv Morgan was eliminated before Rhea Ripley was eliminated by Bianca Belair. And then it came down to Bianca Belair and Alexa Bliss. Now, there were moments in this match where it did look like Alexa Bliss probably could have been a swerve and actually won the Elimination Chamber, but I feel like that would have been met with a lot of backlash. So the WWE actually made the right decision by having Bianca Belair go over on Alexa Bliss and picking up the win to secure her spot at WrestleMania in order to get a shot at the winner of the Raw Women's Championship match later on in the night. Now, review of the match aside and everything, because I think it was the best match of the night, just because of everything else that we kind of got in the night of the Elimination Chamber. So I feel like it was the best match. The women really showed up to Saudi Arabia, where they're typically not even allowed to wrestle, and even in their overly dressed attire, they went out there and put on a hell of a match. Now, to the IWC and to the individuals around the world who had been complaining about Bianca Belair and her treatment from WWE after she lost the title to Becky Lynch last year at SummerSlam in 26 seconds. By the way, in the background, that is a Raw Women's Championship that I got and a Becky Lynch chair that I got from the Extreme Rules pay-per-view that came in Columbus, Ohio. So I thought it was going to be pretty good background for these videos, but neither here nor there. So, to the people who complain about Bianca Belair being buried within the company, and that is a strong word that we're using for this topic. Bianca Belair was buried in the eyes of people. She didn't have anywhere to go. It was stupid for WWE to make the decision with her that they did with Becky Lynch. Blah, blah, blah. She didn't get a championship in that time frame. Whatever. Okay. Bianca Belair was buried in the eyes of people. And now the same people that said that Bianca Belair has been buried by WWE for losing the match against Becky Lynch are now complaining that Bianca Belair won the Elimination Chamber and is going to WrestleMania to compete for the Raw Women's Championship. I don't understand the IWC sometimes, because Bianca Belair is getting exactly what it is that she needs in order to reestablish herself as a star. Think about it. Bianca Belair almost won the Raw Women's Championship against Charlotte Flair on an episode of Monday Night Raw, which, to be honest, she was supposed to win. She was booked to win the match. They made a swerve and said that Charlotte was going to retain, but Charlotte didn't want to retain clean, so she lost via disqualification. But in all actuality, Bianca was supposed to win at that time, so she was supposed to get her comeuppance then. They just pushed it to the side. I wanted Bianca to win the Royal Rumble, but she didn't. Ronda won the Royal Rumble, and everybody that kept saying, oh, just let it play out, from the shit that happened at SummerSlam, continued to complain about it. There was still an opportunity for her, and when she was announced to be a part of the Elimination Chamber, that is how you get her to WrestleMania in order to tie it all together, which she's going to do at WrestleMania when she wins the Raw Women's Championship. Look at it. She competed in Survivor Series. She was the sole survivor at Survivor Series. That's not something that you do to somebody who was buried. I don't care if anybody says, oh, well, look what happened to Lana a couple of years ago. Lana was never somebody who was built up, then torn down, and then you said they were buried. We're talking about Bianca Belair. So, Bianca Belair won the Survivor Series as the sole survivor. That's not something that happens when somebody is buried. Bianca Belair just won the Elimination Chamber. Guess what? Only 8 superstars all time have ever done that, and she is the only woman. Well, no, rephrase that. Only 8 superstars ever have won a Royal Rumble, have won a main event of WrestleMania, and have won the Elimination Chamber. Bianca Belair is one of 8 superstars to do that, and she's the only woman on the list to do that. That is not something that happens to somebody who is buried. So, for the large group of people that are bitching, moaning, and complaining that Bianca Belair is buried, just wait until after WrestleMania, and then holler at me, and holler at everybody else who's been telling you guys, have a little bit of patience, WWE is going to build her back up. That's just all there is to it. But a lot of Twitter was met with jeers and disappointment because Bianca Belair won and somebody else probably could have won and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, the obvious choice to win that match was Bianca Belair. Piper Niven versus whoever for the Raw Women's Championship at WrestleMania. Are you watching that? Are you watching Liv Morgan versus Becky Lynch or Lita? Are you going to watch Rhea Ripley versus Becky Lynch for the Raw Women's Championship? Not gonna lie, that'll be a good match, but that's not gonna be a seller match. Why? Because the biggest star that they have in the women's division right now is the woman that is going to face off against Becky Lynch or Lita for the Raw Women's Championship. That is Bianca Belair. Now that I got that out of the way, we can move on to the next match. And they just got all the women's matches out of the way soon as they could, because the next match that we had was Naomi and Ronda Rousey versus Charlotte Flair and Sonya Deville. There was no way in heaven or hell Ronda Rousey was going to lose this match at all. And I feel like Naomi and Sonya Deville were added into this match. That way, if somebody did have to lose, it wasn't going to take the credibility away from anybody. Ronda came out in her gi, which I thought was weird, but, you know, if she has her reasons for it, it's all good. She had to compete with one arm tied behind her back. And, you know, they gave Charlotte and Sonya a pretty credible amount of offense in this, but that ain't even what I really want to talk about. Let's fast forward through it. Ronda Rousey ended up making Sonya Deville tap to a one-arm arm bar, so we kind of figured that was going to be the end result. But let's just give a shout out and props to my girl Naomi, who also won the match. Naomi snapped a 15-match pay-per-view losing streak by winning this tag team match with Ronda Rousey. I like the fact that Naomi had been featured so heavily in the storylines involving Charlotte Flair and the SmackDown Women's Championship, and now apparently she has some type of alliance with Ronda Rousey. If they somehow or another Daniel Bryan Naomi into this match to make it a triple threat, I would not even mind that, because I feel like that's a WrestleMania moment in its own. It's not going to happen, so I'm not going to pipe myself up or, you know, dream too hard that's going to happen, but I would like to see it. But the match was meh. I'm not really going to say too much about it. I mean, we got what we got out of it. But all in all, I just like the fact that Naomi has been featured very well in this feud that's going on between Charlotte and Ronda Rousey heading up to WrestleMania. I just hope that whatever's going on between her and Sonya Deville is dead beforehand, because I can't take any more of that. It's just, it ain't been it now. It has not been it. Alright. So, now we go on to the next match on the card, which was Drew McIntyre versus Madcap Moss. Not even gonna lie, it was a match that I watched. It had a level of brutality to it. I don't know, man. There was a lot of clunky spots in that match, including the botched Alabama Slam that Madcap Moss ended up taking from Drew McIntyre, in which he looked like he compressed his neck. Almost Stone Cold / Owen Hart-ish type of neck compressing. That did not look comfortable at all, but credit to Madcap for actually being able to finish the match. Of course, Happy Corbin got involved in the match. You know, you kind of figure, like, if it's a Falls Count Anywhere match, that's going to happen. And they got a good bit of offense out in the crowd and everything for it to be an under 10-minute match. They got a lot of spots outside of the crowd. The match pretty much ended when it looked like Drew McIntyre was about to be attacked by Happy Corbin again, and then he pulled out his sword, and it was a really cool spot because he's pointing the sword at Happy Corbin, pretty much letting him know that he's next, and then he hit the Claymore on Madcap Moss, pinning 1, 2, 3. Thank you. That should be done. Don't want to see Madcap Moss versus Drew McIntyre again. They faced off in almost as long of a match at day one. McIntyre won that. They now face each other here at the Royal Rumble, in a sense, where McIntyre eliminated both Corbin and Moss, and now he's faced Madcap Moss at Elimination Chamber, which means the last piece of the puzzle before he can actually start getting on to important things is he's going to have to face Happy Corbin at WrestleMania, because they've done a good job of unnecessarily letting us know that Happy Corbin has been undefeated since he became Happy Corbin. What better way in order to have that streak broken than him lose to Drew McIntyre at WrestleMania? Why not? I may be in Dallas for those WrestleMania matches and events both days. I'm debating on if I want to go one day or go both days. I don't know. I probably might end up doing both days because why be down there and not see the whole event? But the card got to shape up a little bit for me to really give a damn about spending my money on the ticket. And knowing that we're probably going to get Happy Corbin versus Drew McIntyre, but you know, gonna do it anyways. It's WrestleMania, and it hasn't been in a couple of years, so why not? So all things considered, it looks like we're getting Happy Corbin versus Drew McIntyre as a payoff to this god-awful feud that nobody asked for come WrestleMania. All right. Whew. Halfway there. Now we move on to the next match. We had Becky Lynch versus Lita for the Raw Women's Championship. And I would be a goddamn lie if I told anybody that this match didn't impress me. Lita, for the most part, didn't look like she lost much of a step. I wondered about how her and Becky Lynch's chemistry in the ring would work out together. And honestly, it meshed very well. Their spots weren't really too much off. Their in-ring work, the tactical skills, everything was good about the match. Like, I don't think it was better than the women's Elimination Chamber match. It was good though. So, and it really gave a believability as far as the finish is concerned, because it really looked like, I don't know, it really looked like Lita had it won when she hit the twist of fate and then hit the moonsault clean and got 1-2, and it's like 2.999 seconds before Becky Lynch kicked out. You know, the inaccurate reporting of Wrestling Observer News said that there's going to be twists and turns that we look at, and you know, nah, there wasn't no twists and turns. So she kicked out, hit the disarmer on Lita, and as Lita was going towards the rope, she ended up reversing it, picked her up, manhandle slam, pinned her 1, 2, 3. That was it. That was all. Big time Becky Lynch retained the Raw Women's Championship, which sets up for the inevitable clash between Becky Lynch and Bianca Belair for the Raw Women's Championship in presumably a main event of WrestleMania. I don't know if it'll be night one or how they're going to do it, but they're saying the main event of WrestleMania, which means, I don't know, maybe WWE's not as sold as putting Ronda Rousey versus Charlotte Flair on last. Maybe they believe that Bianca Belair versus Becky Lynch is more of a marketable main event than Ronda Rousey versus Charlotte Flair. So if so, I'm not going to complain about that. Yeah, give Bianca Belair another main event. In my eyes, give her all of the main events. She deserves it. You know, if you actually want to think about it, Bianca Belair is probably the best farmed and built product that they have in WWE right now in their women's division. So I'm all for it. Push that girl to the moon. She deserves it. But now that we know who Becky Lynch's opponent is going to be, that's going to be a good one for WrestleMania, and it finally gives long-term booking for Becky Lynch and Bianca Belair, for Bianca to finally get her SummerSlam get back. And I am not going to lie to anybody. The only way that this would be sufficient to me is she has to squash Becky Lynch in under 26 seconds. So the only thing they have to keep talking about is, you know, she beat her in 26 seconds, blah, blah, blah. Becky's got to beat her in like 15. Bianca's got to beat her in like 15 seconds. Like, match start, kick the shit out of her, hoist her up, KOD, 1, 2, 3. And then the match is just over. At that point in time, it's like, yo, you beat me in 26 seconds, I beat you in 14 seconds. I beat you the fastest because I'm the EST. Something like that, I would not be mad at that at all. There are going to be people that piss their pants and cry like, why would you have Becky Lynch versus Bianca Belair and have her lose the match so quick at WrestleMania? Because y'all told us to, be patient when she beat Bianca in 26 seconds at SummerSlam. So, turnabout's fair play. Don't like it, cry a river, build a bridge, and get over it. Don't give a shit. All right, so next match that we ended up having, we had the Usos versus the Viking Raiders, which never happened because the Usos flew 13 hours from the States to go to Saudi Arabia just to beat the shit out of the Viking Raiders before they even got a chance to get the match started. This was better off just being on the pre-show. I promise you, they could have put that match on the pre-show and just let that shit happen without having to take up the time slot. It would not have been of any consequence. It was a waste of time to put that match on the card, and it didn't even happen. We know we're probably going to get the Viking Raiders versus the Usos at WrestleMania at this point, but it's like, bro, you could have kept that shit for the main. You could have kept that shit for the pre-show. That was a pre-show move. At least all the other matches, as bearable or unbearable as they may have been, at least all the other matches had some significant time to them. You could have put that match on after Miz versus Rey Mysterio. Nobody would have given a shit. I was really looking forward to the match, but if that's what we were going to get out of it, no, that wasn't it. That was not it at all. And to that, we go to the main event of the night. We had the men's Elimination Chamber, the match that we were all worried about and waiting for. We ended up getting Bobby Lashley versus Brock Lesnar versus Seth Rollins versus Riddle versus AJ Styles versus Austin Theory. And the match was actually going pretty well. I think that it was Austin Theory and AJ Styles who started out. No, it was Austin Theory and Seth Rollins who started out. Or some I don't know, some mesh up like that, but I can't quite remember. Probably have to look at it. But yeah, they all started out, and what was it? Oh no, it was Austin Theory and Seth Rollins who started out, and then as the pods were emptying, it was then Riddle and then AJ Styles. Bobby Lashley was supposed to be 5, and then Brock Lesnar was going to be last. Now, what happened during a spot with Austin Theory and Bobby Lashley is Austin Theory was hoisted up by Seth Rollins, and he had buckle bombed. He buckle bombed Austin Theory into the pod where Bobby Lashley was, which caused Bobby Lashley to bounce back and hit his head on the chamber. So how this was perceived was Bobby Lashley had suffered a concussion, so they had to open up the chamber and let him out. Medical personnel came out, checked on Lashley, they carried him to the back, he was gone. Bobby Lashley's no longer a part of the match. When his pod went off at 5, he couldn't enter, and then Brock Lesnar just said, fuck this shit, I'm out, and broke through the pod and just started whooping everybody's ass. He whooped Seth Rollins' ass. He whooped goddamn Austin Theory's ass. He whooped Riddle's ass. He whooped AJ Styles' ass. Brock Lesnar whooped everybody's ass. He first pinned Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins deserved better than to be the first guy pinned. He then pinned Riddle. He then F5'd and pinned AJ Styles, leaving Austin Theory and Brock Lesnar. I will say this much. If there was any question about who the future of the WWE is and who it is that they have their eyes on as far as building around, it's Austin Theory. Because Brock Lesnar, if he doesn't trust the the credibility of somebody. He ain't gonna let nobody get that type of offense in on him. Like, Austin Theory was able to at least get a decent amount of offense, but he got his ass whooped for it. So much as even getting F5'd off of a pod, which, you know, once we knew Brock Lesnar was going to be in the Elimination Chamber, somebody was catching it off the pod. It just so happened to be Austin Theory. Ultimately, that led to him catching an F5, and Brock Lesnar pinned Austin Theory to win the Elimination Chamber and become the new WWE Champion, setting up the champion versus champion match at WrestleMania that I promise you nobody asked for and nobody wants. Nobody wants Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar for the WWE and Universal Championship. Nobody especially wants it if they're going to try to unify the championships. If they do this match and they keep it title versus title and the winner is both champions, free to defend on either brand that they see fit, then I guess that's cool. But just doing champion versus champion and unifying the titles without the Universal Championship even getting close to the time that the World Heavyweight title had when it was a secondary title. The World Heavyweight title was around for 11 years before it was devalued and then moved over as a combined title with the WWE title. The Universal Championship's been around less than 6 years, or almost about 6 years. It'll be 6 years this year, so it's been around for about 6 years. It needs a little bit more time before we think about unifying it with the WWE Championship. Plus, it already has a better prestige and lineage than the World Heavyweight title had at the end of its run. So, you know, just keep that title protected. There's no reason to, if we have to suffer with the title versus title match, which looks inevitable at this point, then just keep it separate. Do not combine the Universal Championship. We don't need a WWE World Heavyweight Universal Championship or no shit like that. Just keep it as it is. Roman or Brock, whoever wins the match, will just defend the title on every brand. Roman will defend, or Brock will defend it on Raw and then defend the Universal Championship on SmackDown. However, just do it that way. Do not combine these championships. So, now to the order of Bobby Lashley. So Bobby Lashley was pulled out of the match with a concussion and is in concussion protocol. But that is the story that's being used to write him off, because hours later it was confirmed that Bobby Lashley is set for shoulder surgery and he's set to miss up to 4 months, which means Bobby Lashley unfortunately is going to miss WrestleMania. Now, it was also reported that Bobby Lashley had this injury before the Royal Rumble. I could assume maybe he ended up getting the shoulder injury around the time that he was doing the gauntlet match with Seth Rollins, Kevin Owens, and Big E, or somewhere close to the lead up to day one or something like that. I don't know. It was somewhere around that time frame after day one that he actually suffered the shoulder injury. Now, he was working through it, but it still needed to be corrected, and he ended up winning the WWE Championship at the Royal Rumble, despite the fact that he had that shoulder injury. You can actually see it. I thought that he was just stiffing Brock Lesnar in a sense on those German suplexes that he was taking, but he and Brock were taking extra precaution to make sure that Bobby wasn't landing bad on his already injured shoulder. Bobby Lashley was injured when he faced off against Brock Lesnar for the WWE Championship. He was injured when he won the WWE Championship, and Bobby Lashley never competed after that when he won the WWE Championship. So, I had a couple of people say, well, why did they even put the title on Bobby Lashley? What was the point of putting the championship on Bobby Lashley if he's hurt? You could have did this or you could have did that. Make no bones about it. Bobby Lashley is still a player in the main event card for WWE on the Raw brand. You don't want to discredit him by just having him forfeit or drop a championship. It sucks sometimes when it does, but since he's a person that they're building up and he's not at a certain superstar's level where he can just drop the title and then you got to figure something to do, especially since they're going to be going the route that they're going with champion versus champion. It makes sense to have Bobby Lashley written off as the champion who was never even dethroned for his title. One of two reasons. Number one, because if Brock Lesnar ends up winning the title versus title match, it gives legitimate reason for Bobby Lashley to come back and challenge for at least the WWE Championship. And let's say, I'm gonna fantasy book this for a hot second, not saying that it is true, but let's say that close to Money in the Bank, Bobby Lashley comes back and he's healthy enough to be able to compete for the WWE Championship. And let's just say that Brock Lesnar beats Roman Reigns at WrestleMania for the WWE Championship. Roman will probably take a little bit of time off because he has been running shit since August of 2020. So the man will probably be due a couple of weeks off or a couple of months off. So Brock Lesnar is a dual champion and he is confronted by Bobby Lashley, a returning Bobby Lashley, and he has a claim. You never beat me. I was taken out of the Elimination Chamber. You never beat me. I want a shot at my WWE Championship. So now he gets a shot at the WWE Championship at like Money in the Bank or something. And, you know, as the match is going on or something like that, I don't know. Roman Reigns, not saying that I'm a fan of the interferences or anything like that, but Roman Reigns can cost Brock Lesnar at least the WWE Championship. And then it comes down to a matter of, okay, now we get Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns at SummerSlam for the Universal Championship, and that is how you take the WWE Championship off of a double champion, get it back to its own brand, and it gives Bobby Lashley a legitimate claim to say, hey, I never lost, I want my title match. He loses the WWE Championship to Bobby Lashley, Brock Lesnar that is, and now you can go ahead and resume the Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar feud without having to involve the WWE Championship, because now they gave you title versus title. Whoever wins the title gets to hold it for about 4 months, and then you separate it, and then you don't touch the title versus title shit again for about another decade, or unless the company is in failure, like a bad crisis, and you can't do, like if you end the brand split permanently, it's like you can no longer do 2 championships, then at that point in time, but if that's not the case, there's no need to do it. But I mean, that's how I'm a fantasy book the end of that, and that's how I'm going to end this segment with the All Talk Wrestling Fans Assemble pay-per-view review. All in all, I give the Elimination Chamber like a solid 5 out of 10. It really just didn't do anything for me. I could go lower than that. You know what? I will go lower than that. No, 5 out of 10 is cool. It probably would have been like a 5.5 out of 10 if they would have at least put the Usos and the Viking Raiders on the pre-show and not taking up a main slot on the card for that shit. But I digress. I don't know. It was so far the worst pay-per-view that WWE put on. Royal Rumble was a little bit better than that, but still worse. It was still pretty bad. Day one still going to remain as their best show so far. But that's pretty much all that I have for my Elimination Chamber review. I will be, again, doing the review for No Surrender, the Impact Wrestling pay-per-view that took place Saturday as well. So make sure you guys check out that video. But outside of that, thank you guys for listening to my pay-per-view review. I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Have a good one.